We have lots of problems to motivate us for meditation. And today I have prepared a PowerPoint presentation to explain the depth psychological background. So have joy while watching. Welcome. Today I'd like to talk about motivation related to meditation. Let's start with the presentation. First of all, I wanted to introduce a motivation expert. That's not what you expect. This is a motivation expert because, as you can see, it's playing with the sand a little bit in the hands, and he's just in the moment. He's watching the sea and like playing with the dirt and don't consider about the dirt, and is not so involved in his mind like us adults, and therefore he also has no problems with being motivated or anything because he just does it what he does. But he's not so much in doing like us, he's more in being. He's just there, and when he considers, or not really consider, but when he decides play with the sand, and he plays with the sand, and there is no reason for that. It's just a decision, like nonsense. We would say it's nonsense, but for the children it's maybe it's like doing meditation, and it's not to consider what he does. So you can see this is a motivation expert. He's always motivated. He meditates, he watches the sea. You don't have to close your eyes for meditation. He just relaxes and plays a little bit with the sand. And so there you can say it's a motivation expert. The next aspect why this one is a motivation expert compared with us, who are in most cases not motivation expert, because when you consider, you wake up in the morning and the first thought comes and it says, oh no, not a day. But at this one, could you imagine, there is no such thought like, not a day, I don't want this day, I want to sleep more. And okay, sometimes they sleep more, but often they start to cry in the morning, some even the whole night, because they are motivated, they want something. They are really motivated, they don't have problems with that. And here, this I don't know why he's sitting, but I guess that maybe he tried to learn to go and fall down, and therefore he's sitting. But he's motivated, he stands up again. Yeah, okay, there's another one, but I haven't found another picture. So he stands up and doesn't cry again. Sometimes they cry, and 1 minute later they have forgotten the reason why they have cried. But this is because they are freed from the mind, which is always blah blah and judging the thoughts and having negative thoughts, and then judging the negative thoughts and downward spiral and negative emotions and more downward spiral. They are free from it. They fall down, and even some don't cry, and they stand up again, and then they try again, and they fall down and stand up, fall down, stand up. They don't sit there and say, oh no, I don't want to learn going again. It's so, I'm falling down 3 times in a row, and now it's over, I will never go again. Yeah, they don't have such mindsets like us. When we have 3 times in a row, not so much luck, we give up. But they don't give up. But then the point comes, as you know from the other videos, education comes. They go into school when they are 6 or so, some earlier, some later. And from that time, they start to begin to think, to really, they also started before when they learn to speak, but at school, they learn mindsets. They learn how they have to behave, how they have to think, what they have to think. And they give them all the conditions, all the beliefs, what they believe all their life. You are this bad person, which is always disturbing the lecture. They blame someone and again, and this person believes it, or they blame someone, you're not good enough, you're so bad at school. And this person believes the whole life, he's not good enough, and then in the work, the same problem, and then he really does not have success. This person is not good enough because this person believes that he's not good enough. And so he will never have any motivation at work. And when he later gets the burnout or whatever, or any reasons appear, and if this person will start with meditation, then there is also this lack of motivation. And this person doesn't know why. But there is still this unconscious belief in the person which says you're not good enough. You're not good enough. You haven't reached your targets in life. You haven't reached, the good marks. You haven't reached your targets in work. And now, even with meditation, you are so bad. You're not good enough. This is just one case. There are other cases too for a lack of motivation. But maybe some people have this unconscious belief. I'm not good enough. But most problems with motivation, especially also for meditation, comes from unconscious areas, from beliefs, from conditions we have learned at school. And also from conditions from society. When someone, for example, is overstimulated from social media, and suddenly you wanted to start meditation because you heard that everyone does it, and then the problem is meditation appears boring for this person because the person is overstimulated. But in this case, the person especially needs meditation to calm down from all this overstimulation, from these addictions to digital media or social media or whatever digital media includes, video games. I don't want to make ads here. This entangles more and more because it entangles into a virtual life. I have made an extra video about it. Let's come to the next and last motivation expert. All this, they are very motivated because they are like primitive people in early mankind too, like just striving for food and this basic stuff. And there is also no problem with meditation. You also know the cats at daytime when they are laying around. Some people say cats are the best Zen masters. They know how to relax. Most cats are relaxing the whole day. That belongs to cats, but it should also belong to people. So cats are not just motivated for the food, cats are also very motivated for relaxing. And they are not bored. They're not overstimulated because they don't have a mind which is always striving for, I wanted more information, I wanted more fun in the games, or the cat has little fun with catching the mice and so, and then it can lay down and relax. There is not still the mind which thinks about the past. Oh, there was this mouse and I haven't get this mouse, and now I'm angry because I didn't get this mouse. Because when we don't have success, we are always are in the past and arguing about that. Or even if we have success, we can't calm down because we are so excited. But the cat is the master in being motivated for meditation. This is from a psychological lexicon, but there are other aspects too. I will add them additionally after that. Shoots and instincts. This is actually the same. You can the best see at animals when they are hungry, but also at the earliest mankind. But actually, it is also there in us. It is not that it is primitive, but we still have it. Not that it's the past, You also have still brain parts which the earliest mankind had. You have additionally other brain parts now, but you also have the old ones, and therefore you also behave like that. But we have also the new ones which stops us a little bit and say, no, not now, not now. We don't have to eat now too much. It's not good for us. We have to do some fitness of it. we have a choice. And the cat has not a choice. When it wants the food, then it wants the food. So it's more primitive. And habits is the same, and habits is a big problem today. Habit is a big problem. Most people, most of the time, run on autopilot mode. They almost all the time do things and don't consider about it. But that doesn't mean that they are enlightened and everything is like flowing or so. It's not the case. This is just also more like subconscious. It goes automatically. Even conscious things, even thinking is involved, but even thinking goes automatically. When you consider, you react often to things, you see a person or a situation, and you automatically judge if you want or not. There are even some people which can't stop to say something, say things to blame the other one. Automatically, some people really can't stop it and can't just think the negative thought about the person. But even that is not the best way, as you know. But it's better than to blame the person. So yeah, and this is from habits. This is from the habit, and that's the worst habit you can have. All other habits, no problem. When you go every morning, brush your teeth, and no problem with habits. But negative habits are there too, and this is from the ego, and this is like automatic reaction with negative thoughts, automatic judgment on others, on yourself, whatever. The first thing in the mirror in every morning, and especially maybe for women, but also some men, like maybe standing there and I'm not strong enough, I must become strong. And the first thing you see in the mirror and the first thing is you judge. Why? Don't do that. You are perfect as you are. Which is that's different. Sometimes it comes from shoots too. When you are hungry, this is kind of a wish. Yeah, but it also can come from thinking and from having wishes because you considered I want this or that. This is. But I will go deeper into it. But I will go deeper into it on the next page. A very big problem what we suffer from our values, because we all have values and attitudes. We think things must be this way. People which are very entangled in their ego just focus one thing, and this is the only truth, and all other aspects or all other perspectives, views, or opinions are wrong. That's a big problem what many people have. We just believe that there is this one opinion, this is my opinion, and this is true, and all others are wrong. Or another attitude, you judge something as bad. You say, for example, living in a little chaos is bad, and everything must have an order. Yeah, that's kind of a habit too. But when you have this in your mind and you blame others, then it's more a value problem, because you say just order is good and chaos is bad. But then you live one side, but the coin, as you know, has always two sides. And the life is like that, like accepting the other side too. Or take a magnet. When you have a magnet and you cut the magnet, still has north and south pole. Then there are two magnets, but both still have north and south pole. It's a new north pole, it's a new south pole. Both sides are still there. Whatever you do, you can't flee from duality just through meditation and to finding your higher self. Go in the direction of enlightenment. There is freedom from duality. But as long as you're here, as long as you're thinking, feeling, and talking, you are in the duality. And there, the coin has always two sides. The next one is interest. I will go deeper into it later. And this is additionally from me. When they are not fulfilled, stress appears. Stress is not that bad. It's also actually a factor for motivation. It was in the earliest mankind very useful when they ran away from a tiger or so. Therefore, stress is not that bad, but we could also make a full session about stress and also say that stress could also be very bad, as you know. So this is what I wanted to show you now. I found out that actually the first ones are more unconscious and the last ones are more conscious, because interest is really, yeah, but actually interest could also be, when you consider a cat has the interest to go, no, it is not an interest, it's just an instinct. So this is right now here. But I think the wishes is like half half. Therefore, I put the line there, because the wishes, it could be from a shoot, could appear first there is the shoot, and then you have the wish to get food. Or it could also be a wish from what you have considered and what is more or less conscious from human consciousness. We just talk here from human consciousness, because higher consciousness has no wishes, has no values. And I think, I don't know if it is interest. I think it has interest, but it will show you what your interests are. It will show you your purpose, and then you know what your hobbies are, or what your tasks are, or what your job has to be. So new values sounds first of all bad, because all people love their values and attitudes. And I have so good attitudes, and all the other people are so bad. But I have good attitudes, and I want just strive for good things. This is also a trap. And therefore, I say that higher self or higher consciousness is not trapped in attitudes and values. It has highest values because it's beyond good and bad. It has just highest, and therefore it doesn't put people in boxes or categories or so. But the mind values are not so good all the time, even if they are conscious, but it's just human consciousness, and therefore often very egocentric, even if you really believe you have the best attitudes. But I will go to the ego stuff in a few minutes. Let's first look to the unconscious, because I have already said that things are conscious and things are unconscious. Yeah. The point is, you can see the iceberg model from Sigmund Freud here, but Sigmund Freud hasn't painted. I have painted this time, but generally his students, which were later also psychologists and authors, they have created this one to explain Freud's teachings better. But Freud has never painted such an iceberg. He has just written books, and it was not so easy to read, also for me, therefore I know. And his students then decided to, maybe one had this insight of having this iceberg, but such insights often come from, most of the time, actually always come from higher consciousness. And I think this insight was also when this person had written his stuff or listened to his lectures, and suddenly this person got the insight, we can paint it as an iceberg. And I have also tried to paint it, and I extra leave the picture open on the ground because I wanted to show that the iceberg is actually bigger than I can present here. So the unconscious is huge. One said that the unconscious, when you compare it with conscious, the consciousness is just 5 centimeters compared with 100 kilometers or so. This is when you, maybe this can help to understand how big the unconscious is with 100 kilometers, and the consciousness is just human consciousness. It's just a few centimeters. That's the problem. We just see the world through a small keyhole. We just see the key, but we don't see the rest. And that's the problem. And therefore, we are kind of like slaves from the mind, because we believe and we trust so much in human consciousness, because we are so entangled and believe what we think is right, and all that stuff. And I wanted to explain here that the higher self is very deep in the unconscious, hidden also, but it's not, but actually the higher self is higher consciousness. Actually, you must say it is here, like in the heaven, but for us, it seems like unconscious when you find it the very first time, because we have never considered that, and we have never felt or were never connected to the higher self, and therefore it seems like unconscious, but it's not unconscious, it's just unknown for us. But actually it's higher. But some say it's in the unconscious, but that's actually wrong, what some psychologists say, and what I wanted to present and to tell here now, because it's not the case. But in most cases, what psychologists say are right and are good to understand. For example, wisdom is also here in the unconscious areas, and philosophers which have access to wisdom, there is the barrier, the water, what I tried to make here clear, that here ends the water. That's ground zero here. And you can open this water and go a little deeper and have connection to your unconscious areas through meditation. And therefore we meditate. That's a very big aspect to develop, because most people are just suppressing. They don't want to see their emotions. They don't want to see negative thoughts. They always try to suppress. But then when you suppress, you want just this perfect, controlled, conscious life. This is the top of the mountain here. This is your perfect, controlled 5 centimeter life, your keyhole. Yeah. And people just strive for that they have control. The whole society, the whole civilization is like we control everything. Yeah. We have founded the streets and we added traffic lights and that we have the control about it. Yeah, in some cases it's good and it's working well. So, but for the human soul, mm-mm, you, you have you have to consider there is still the unconscious, which wants to show us actually the highest wisdom and the higher self. But this is what the unconscious wants. It is not that it wants to blame us and show us negative emotions. The problem is when you the first time have access to the unconscious, your emotions come first because they are not that high stuff like wisdom or so, and they are not that unconscious. They are often in the pre-conscious. This refers to different personalities. Pre-conscious is like it's very close to conscious and it's very close to ground zero, and you have easier access than to the rest, what is even more hidden in unconscious. It is also unconscious, therefore it's under the waterline. But pre-consciousness or pre-conscious is what is grabbable for the conscious, what is ready to become conscious and to let the top little grow. And here are several methods. Through meditation, you can have access very fast here. Through dreams too. If you don't meditate, you will suffer again and again from even more nightmares and worse nightmares. And because they want to show you something. They want to show you something, and you don't want to see, and I don't want to have nightmares anymore. But they want to show you. And Freud and all the psychologists said that the preconscious and dreams dreams have such a high value. We don't see that in earlier times in religions, and so they saw dreams as a big thing. Some prophets also had very interesting dreams which helped his whole society or his whole folks from, which saves the folks from things and brought the folk to God. And so dreams have ever been useful, but nowadays they once started to say dreams are useless. And this is not good because dreams can say you something. If you interpret it in the right ways, when you, for example, dream about a person which you don't like, you must consider it has never to do with this person. The truth is that the person stands as an image, as whatever you don't like, maybe something which you reject on yourself. When this person is maybe an angry person, maybe you reject to have anger in your unconscious areas because you were perfect in suppressing anger. But it comes in the dreams and it shows you, and then you wake up and you are confused like that. And yeah, you will see the unconscious influences you if you want or not. And in the deepest areas are the most interesting things. But the pity is that in the not so deep areas, there are, first of all, it's all the suppressed stuff we don't want to see. Yeah, we are just here in this duality. We just want the good stuff, we suppress the bad ones. We just want good emotions, we suppress the bad emotions. We just want good thoughts, positive thoughts, we suppress the negative thoughts. And all that suppressed stuff, that negative stuff, first of all, comes directly to you when you start to meditate. And then you're, whoa, I don't want to meditate again ever in my life. It's too hard. I was frightened, that's the first times of meditation. And that's a big problem that most people again and again stop to meditate and say, oh no, that was too hard for me. I have seen like negative emotions over. No, you must learn to bear that. That's a hard way. But when you come through that first things which shows up, you will really find, first of all, the inner peace, then inner harmony between your soul parts. I will go to that in the ego stuff later now. And you will really have a good life then. But the more you have suppressed in your life, it is hard the first time to meditate. But In some cases it's not that hard. Maybe it's just the very first time which is not so good, but the second time is perfect, and you suddenly get the inner peace. And but the inner peace is not the highest aim, but it's our first positive results, and you have never had such a peace before. You will say, oh, that's good, let's go deeper. And one day you find the higher self. And then you will also say to people, meditate more. It's good. Yeah, the problem is the mind. I want to explain this now. Because we think too much and we get a headache, like this woman, I don't know, headache or like doubts, like so that it's more like doubts, I think so. And this one doesn't consider, because there is no conditioned mind and beliefs which are related to the mind and from which come from education and so. And this one is just like doing thing, and you must consider that he doesn't eat the dice or so. Yeah, that's actually, it's an easier life. And the other one, the woman there, is suffering from the mind. Like it seems like she's suffering from the mind also. She has judged something bad or so, and things happen like they happen, and then she suffers. Yeah, but I want first, before I explain the negative aspects of the ego, I first wanted to explain the advantages of the mind. And I also come to that the mind is actually related to the ego, but I will come to that later. Let's say it's the mind, but the mind itself is not guilty. It is actually because it is controlled by the ego. Therefore, that's the problem. There is a teaching in psychology which is actually called cognitivism, and there you can find the positive aspects of the mind. You need it for in your everyday life, for concepts, for calculating. You take these things and you want to count things, and you have to, because we have a money system. All countries have a money system, and so we need concepts and we need this thinking function, and therefore it is good. It is also good to understand and for learning. Just think now, this maybe belongs to children, but this can also belong to parents or to adults in general, even very old ones. When you are open for the life, you are open for learning your whole life and to develop. But when you say with 20 or with 25, or some people say, no, I'm ready now. I'm ready and I am working and I'm just striving for having a smartphone every year, a new one, or every few months, whatever. And that's all. And you see, it doesn't make you lucky, but you strive for the next smartphone. Okay, then leave it here now, please. But you are still there, and therefore you know about things like that, and that there is something like a potential in us we have. When you compare it with animals, they don't have. Why do we have, compared with our body, the rest of the body, such a big brain? There is something more, and this is also in the neocortex, the prefrontal cortex, where they say, which is kind of a door, which maybe should neuroscience explore more, because there is the potential. There is maybe the aspect which leads us to the higher consciousness. Okay, as you all know, I don't have to say here anything. It's the amount of thinking. Overthinking, we have talked about in all videos, overthinking, mind wandering, all that stuff, yeah? And what does it produce? It produces doubts and lamentation, This is all mind work. First of all, in some cases it's good, but then duality comes and then you have a bad day, and like life works, and you're suffering because it's duality, and it goes automatically if you want or not. There are people which just strive all the time in the social media for positive stuff, positive, positive, positive. But the negative side of the coin is also there. And if you just strive for positive emotions, positive thoughts, you suppress the other side all the time, but it grows in the subconscious areas. And suddenly when it comes all together, when you, for example, start the very first time with meditation, then boom, yeah, it's too much. Yeah, and this is the aspect I have meant before. This is that ego influences the mind, and therefore we have all the problems which I have named here. And when we go back to the points from before, from the psychology lexicon, our shoots are still influenced from ego, because at the primitive ones, the ego was very active and is still, and still influences today. Also in habits, as we have already said, the wishes are actually all from the ego, because higher consciousness has no wishes anymore. It has just the wish that the world is good, and that other people also start with meditation, and that we all can have a good world and live conscious here, really conscious. But that's the only wish, if there are any wishes from the higher consciousness. Because in the higher consciousness, you just enjoy whatever is. You love everything as it is. Even if you are in a bad situation, you can love the enemy. No problem with that. Suddenly, wherever you are, you always feel safe. When you consider, Jesus also wanted to show that with his sufferings and so. But the people haven't grasped that for 2000 years. So psychology or neuroscience have to explain here a little more. And here is a big problem which the ego causes. Ego takes the values for expectations on others. Ego wants others to be different, or to do things, or to not do things what they are doing. The ego wants, has also something to do with that the ego loves control, and it just not controls the own life and wants the perfect life, like that everything is going and has to go and has to work, and this conscious area, this top of the mountain, which is perfectly controlled. The ego also wants others that they also behave in the order I want. And that's the big problem, because everyone has several values and attitudes, and everyone wants others this way. And therefore, we have trouble with others, because we have expectations, but we also have expectations on our own. And we make our own life like a burden, or even like a hell, when we have expectations like, I must be perfect at school or at university, I must have the best marks. And you can have too high expectations. And in nowadays, in most societies, it's a big problem that we have too high expectations on ourselves and on others. Yeah, let's go deeper in the ego. I wanted to say, and that's a basic point that no one, or very few people, just know and just consider. Actually, it is said that everyone has an ego. That's, for psychology, it's a fact. And there's enough evidence on it. But the ego is just a part of the consciousness. Just a very small part, or a very small area of our life, which is perfectly controlled. But there is much more. There's a whole soul, there's a whole consciousness. But even that, people don't consider. Most people think they are just the body. That's all. And when they consider, hey, I'm thinking, what is thinking? Thinking actually belongs to the soul, to the ego. But when I'm thinking belongs to the brain, and brain belongs to the body. So I'm just a body. That's all. But they will suffer with this mindset when they die, when they grow older, or when they get sick or ill or whatever. They will suffer like, all the sufferings Buddha has named: illness, growing old, and death. That are the basic sufferings. Between that, there are also every life sufferings, but they are just, the more values you have, the more wishes you have, and all that is not fulfilled, therefore you suffer. But this is just small stuff. The biggest things are about healthiness, are about growing older. You consider about time, to use your time and don't waste it. That you don't say at the deathbed, I haven't used my time in the right ways. And then the death, this is an essential topic. But of course, young people don't consider that. But you do, because you are on such a channel and you are still there, and you love to know more about it, because you want to reduce suffering for you. and maybe for your friends and your followers, with which you can share stuff which you learn here, and then even more people can benefit from it. Or in the best case, my wish is that you share this channel, but just share it with the right people. It doesn't make sense when you share it with anyone. Yeah, people you know which are not, but maybe you don't know. Maybe there are some from which we think they would not be interested in such stuff, but suddenly they change their mind and say, oh, that's not so bad. Whatever you do, I trust you. You do the right things. You do the right things, share it or not. But I wanted to say that it is not just that most people don't consider to have an ego. Most people even don't consider that they have any soul or consciousness or something like that. Soul is like an old term. This is often used in old philosophies and in religion, and therefore most people which are nowadays not so religious don't consider a soul. But I don't also like the term psyche, because of psyche is actually, it's an older word because it comes from ancient Greek, but the medical branch has taken this word, and when I hear or read psyche, first thing which appears is like something with mental illness, and so I don't want, but this was also my problem. I also thought that I'm just a body. I thought it, I think 20 years or so of my life, because I was educated like that. And suddenly I got a depression. And then the first time you start to consider, I have a psychological disease. They say it's a psychological. What is psyche? And you consider, okay, that's soul. You don't know why you know that, but something in you knows. Suddenly like, okay, there is such thing like a soul. Otherwise, I couldn't get a mental illness. And then you start. And then I started. I started to interest me for psychology earlier because I saw a person with a psychological disease, and I was frightened from this person, and therefore I was very motivated to learn psychology. And I started in an autodidactical way. But later I officially started to study, so because I wanted to know more about me too, not just about other persons. And therefore, yeah. But everyone really has also an ego, not just the soul is okay. For maybe religious people, I have seen religious people, they say, I have a soul, and yeah, and I'm developing, and I'm so good, and everyone has one. Yeah. But in that cases, they don't accept that they have an ego. They think they are already freed from ego. And that's a big problem. And that's also a big problem in fake gurus and fake yogis, or like people, they believe they are enlightened because of good deeds. Or of, even in Christianity, you have people in Christian communities, they are very active, overactive. Yeah, you see the problem, right? It comes from their mind, I must do something. They are very far away from their being, which is actually the connection to God or to higher self. They are so lost in doing and in helping others, and they believe that when they just do good deeds, they are holy, they are freed from ego, and they don't have any ego. But what I say is, even the good sheep, which go every Sunday, and when they meet together, sometimes looks like, when sheep are, they are all so cute and so lovely and do good things and go into church, but even those ones have an ego too, if they want or not, and they know it. They know it when they do good deeds. And duality is there, the other side of the coin. They do good deeds, but suddenly they are very aware, because praying is also kind of meditation, and praying people are also very aware, have a good development in the consciousness, but are just entangled from dogmatic stuff, and so that's a problem. But generally they are not that bad. It's not so bad the way, but the problem is they just want to be good, and they don't accept, as long as they are in human consciousness, that there is another side of the coin. And then they wonder, they have a good awareness, they can see their own thoughts, can observe their own thoughts. It's a very good thing in praying people. They can this good too, this religious people. And then they see negative thoughts, and then they suffer. And then they go to psychotherapists or to pastors, to similar things. So you can also have a free psychotherapy at a priest. So that's possible. So they go there and they try to talk about that, and yeah, but it's not a good psychotherapist, I think, because then he says, yeah, maybe you are far away from God and you must be good, and why have you negative? Maybe the priest even judges the person, if it is a bad therapist. So be careful with that. But even the non-Christian, the normal psychotherapists, not all are good. But nowadays they are so full that most people are glad to get any appointment with any one of them, and so it's very hard to find a really good one. So for this foil, it's so easy, and I don't want it to overflood you with scripture or with text, or so therefore I take more pictures than text. And I want you to show with this foil just, first of all, there is an ego, if you want or not. And actually, there is another point. There is a soul. There is a whole thing which is bigger than the ego. The ego is just a small part. But most people even don't consider to have a soul or a consciousness. But that's the future. And neuroscientists are very active in exploring that. And I think psychology, neuroscience, there is hope in these sciences that they can maybe one day explain the big picture for us. Yeah, that's also a standard thing from Sigmund Freud. You have maybe seen in psychology teachings, but I wanted to integrate it here too. Your ego is splitted, and you know that it's not meant that you have it's also a psychological disorder that you have several personalities. This is not meant here. Here it is more meant that you have sometimes thoughts in you, they are against others. This is confusing because, for example, the it is more like your inner animal, where your drives are, where your shoots are. Yeah, it is hungry, it wants to eat, it wants sex, it wants, this is the it. This is the primitive part. Then there is a superego, but this is not better because just of the name. This is in English, I don't know, it's not a good name. I think it's called superego because it believes that it is super, but actually it is not. It was super in the past when you compare it with the it, because first humans, I think, when you consider the very early mankind, they just had the it, maybe the ego too, of course, because there's a source of all that. And they had just the it, which was striving for security and food and all that stuff. And there was this ego, which was considering how to get the best food in maybe the shortest time, And later, we split it a new thing from the ego, and that was the super ego. So we were split it in three things. It's not that the ego disappears and now a super ego in it. Now it's three parts, they say. But it's actually this even more splitted in, this is just a model which explains something. But when you look at your soul, they say it's split it in endless stuff. And this is like an endless inner conflicts and endless inner discussion sometimes in you, when you stay up in the morning and you stand in front of your clothes and you can't make any decision. And, I have so many clothes, but I don't know what to wear today. You have inner conflicts. You think on the one hand you want something comfortable, but on the other hand you want to look good. Superego wants that you take the best clothes, that you look good, that that other people think good from you, and it wants to take the more comfortable stuff, like the jogging pants or so, to go out. And then the ego in most cases makes the decision. But it could also be that the superego is more in the foreground. It's some people which are very strict. The superego is also the root of moral rules, of ethical stuff, but it uses often that ethical stuff, that moral rules, for blaming others, for judging yourself. I'm not good enough. I must be better. I must improve all the time. And then it is there and it is hungry. And it wants things, and and then superego is always stopping. And so when you don't consider that and other stuff which you have learned here, then you are always driving, like driving a car, but at the same time pressing the brake all the time. You go through your life pressing both pedals at the same time. And that's the problem. But let's go deeper in it. In some cases, they write it this way, but I don't like this way because here some could think that superego is something better because it's the highest, you know? And some people could think superego. So maybe in a medieval time when there was a strict upbringing and so they were just striving for being perfect and, therefore, and maybe today too, for some people, superego is in the foreground. But for what I have now planned, I had to write it this way because I want to compare it. I wanted to show that actually everything can be conscious, pre-conscious, and unconscious. Let's take this example with the superego. The superego actually is an unconscious part, but it can be very conscious for very strict people. Really, there are some people, maybe from your everyday life, which are always very strict or always judging others, and that's a, a, an example for someone which has a superego which is very conscious, but it's not higher consciousness because of super or so. No, it is human. It's just in the human consciousness, just in our keyhole, or on our top of the mountain, which we believe is the only life. But actually, it is also for some people unconscious. Maybe for some people, the it is very conscious. In this case, the superego is very unconscious. But it, for most people, it's in the middle. It's like pre-conscious. It can be active, suddenly become there, but also could be suppressed more there. And yeah, actually, the ego is more in the foreground for most, but all can be in every place. And at the same person, it can change at the same day. It is not that one person is always, maybe also some people are just in the superego all of their life, all the time, always judging. But there are also some which are switching, which are judging in the morning, and at lunchtime they are not judging anymore. They are, more hungry. And or in the normal ego, just thinking constructive, not destructive. So yeah, it can change. And now let's come to the deeper problems of the ego, because it identifies with the body. I can say it again and again, and that's the biggest problem. And when you consider rebirth, in that case, in some religions it's abolished, but it actually comes from ancient time, and it was actually, even in early Christianity, it was included until Augustine has abolished it. About in the year, I think about 400. It was abolished in Christianity, but the first Christians have believed in rebirth. When you consider you were entangled with your body, not just this life, but also hundreds of life. I don't know how often someone reincarnates, but there is this body and you identify with it. And you don't consider to have a soul. Actually, you have this body just in this life, just you consider this life and you want to save it and you want to feed it, and but this is just a very small part. I have said it in the other videos too. There is something bigger which is actually, I don't know, it's endless or so, because there is no time in the other dimensions. When you die and you go in the other dimension, there is no time. We just count in time. So but when we take it and say, okay, there is no time, but when we, for this example, consider there would be time, there would be kind of eternity time. Let's say eternity is 1,000 years. It's often spoken in religion, so, but it's more as endless actually. But let's say when it's 1,000 years, even then 80 years appears small, but we just focus that 80 years to make it a good one. And we don't focus that there is something more, and maybe we should also focus that. And that's the problem. And we identify not just with the body, but also with the life story. And that's a big problem. Many people suffer so much because they think always about their past life, I mean, just this life. They had any negative experience and they say it again and again to other people and they love to tell it. And they also love to tell it on their own and to think about it. And this person always wants this negative emotions and wants to cry. And I have also said in the other video. So let's go to the next one. It identifies with his or her own characterizations and properties. Yeah, this is also belonging to the life history because it says always, I'm this ill person which suffered so a lot. And this characterization like being ill or being weak. And this is also belonging to ego and to the life story, which so the ego identifies with it, but the ego identifies with it just because the ego wants to hold his identity. The ego wants to keep this negative identity because when you suddenly want to go out and want to free yourself from that negative stuff, the ego has to go away and has to leave you. But the ego doesn't want to leave you. And therefore, the ego tries to make more and more illusions about your life history and your identity that you are even entangled more and more. It finds other layers and newer layers that it throws you more and more in the illusion. Not just you, because you are almost out, therefore you have found this channel. But most of the people, when you consider, they are all entangled and believe so strongly that this is all true, what's about their life story. And that's so important, as everything is so important. We can't let it go. And that's the big problem. The ego always wants to keep that identity, even if it is bad, even if you have a bad life. But also good ones want to keep that, from rich people and so. But as you can see, even rich people are suffering. Research reports say that the richest nations or the richest people have the highest rate of depression, are not happy. And yeah, property is a big problem of separation because the more property you have, you think about that's mine and that's yours, and you wanted to build a fence for it, like and we are all educated like that, not to share too much with others, and so. But some are there, they are better in sharing, others not, and I'm also learning every day to share more, not just through YouTube, but also in material life. So, but that's hard for us because we learn. So this is yours, and even when you see small children, they buy several toys for that children a toy and for that children a toy, and that's yours and that's yours, and then they believe it's mine, and so ego starts to grow in the very earliest time of a baby, when you're a baby, and you have all these expectations. And actually for everything I have said it in the context of values, but you have expectations, and yeah, that's a big problem. And here future and past plays a big role because you also take expectations from the past because, for example, a thing went well in the past and you expect for the future that it goes well again. And what in the case if it doesn't happen, you are disappointed. That's ego working. Hope is another thing. Sometimes I take a look in the Bible also just for a verse, and then when I see the word hope, I wish that I can throw this word out of the Bible or from other stuff too. Hope is like also like having a vague expectation for a good future, but you never know what happens. So better not to have hope what is actually kind of an expectation. Best thing is to be open whatever comes, even if it is bad. Be ready. So you will have a good life then. Yeah, loves control. I said it in the context of the top of the mountain, but it's generally the top of the mountain is all you know consciously with the human consciousness. And we love to control everything. The whole civilization is controlled. And then you break out and say, now I start with meditation and I go in monotone places and I can bear silence, all no problem. But suddenly your friends, which are still in the old Matrix, you know, the film Matrix, that was great. There was someone, the Neo, this guy who breaks out of the Matrix. This is like when you start with meditation and you are on the way to your higher self, or even you have already seen your higher self. You had this connectedness, you had this union, and then you go to your old friends, which don't meditate and which, you know, are in that prison, in that mental prison, still hidden, still entangled, and still suffering and love their suffering so much and love their control. They actually also want to avoid suffering, and they don't see that they are even suffering when they love to control everything. And but life is like a float, it works, and bad things come too. The only thing you can do is to learn to bear even bad things, and this you can just learn through meditation and not from running away, and also not from suppressing, which is actually kind of running away, because it comes again and again. It becomes harder. The more you suppress, it grows and grows, and when then you see a negative thing again, suddenly it overwhelms you and you are more angry again, or more disappointed. You know, therefore it's good to learn to bear small disappointments too every day and to suffer a bit. But with meditation, you can learn to go in the direction to your higher self. And then you don't suffer anymore, because this is end of all suffering. Because in this union, you are in the pure love, and with the pure love, you love everything. You don't strive anymore to make anything better, because it is not good enough. I must do something to make it better. This disappears when you are in the higher self. But the ego is always searching for satisfaction. It wants satisfaction, like, you know, a monkey which wants to play, or a dog which wants to play. There was always satisfaction, and we are sitting there. You know, when you go through the city, I don't know where you live, but I think it's almost everywhere in the world. People are going like zombies, like just watching on the stair, like so, like running like this, like through the city. So with the smartphone, all are so running, and like zombies, they all want satisfaction all the time, because going consciously through the city and being aware about what's going on inside of you, maybe also what are sounds outside, you know, being aware what's there, what actually is the here and now, is not so important for them. It's so, yeah, it's so boring, and you know, because of the overstimulation, because they all strive for satisfaction, and yeah, and the providers of all the games, they give them the satisfaction, and then the rest appears boring. But the rest, which appears boring and empty, is actually biggest potential, and you are on the right way, and therefore you are here. But the problem with the satisfaction goes even deeper, because as you know from smartphones and from, you know, the video games and other stuff, it causes addictions, and it makes actually even more unhappy. For the moment, you think when you play, you are satisfied and you are happy, but because of the overstimulation, in long term, you need more and more. And they also work with emotions in the games, and with praisings, and with rewards and so. And then you want more and more, and or even you don't play a game when you are just when you're on your Facebook profile, and you want more likes, and you know, you want all that rewards, and but you want more. And when the next day less appears, you are unhappy. But there is no guarantee that you get more likes each day, so sometimes it's less. And when you are identified and just strive for the satisfaction with the digital media or whatever, it's just an example. Yeah, you can also take a car driver or an alcohol drinker. You can take any addiction or any satisfaction which is the ego striving for. But at the end, it always makes unhappy, because you always want more and more and more. But there can't be one day there is the end. So, for example, at alcohol, one day your body is, you know, game over. At the game too, you know, just one day, and then you want another game, but this is not so attractive like the first one, but you have won the first one already, and so there is nothing more. And then these addictions are always striving for satisfaction. At the end, it makes unhappy. Therefore, a life with little more monotony would be very good for many people. And yeah, the problem from what the ego is actually, it's also, you can take it for relationships. Yeah, when you always want to have more satisfaction with your partner. So one day the partner will say, no, it's today, it's enough for me. So, and then you are unhappy and disappointed. Or when you entangle in games or so, your partner will also be not happy with you when you're just looking on the screen all the time instead of looking to the partner. So in all cases, what I have named about the ego, it actually makes worse relationships. But this is because the ego is splitted in itself, and it is also good in splitting and separating with others. But that comes actually from the own splitting inside of you. This is also kind of a projection. You also see splitting, and there are really some kind of narcissists or negative people which try extra to split people or to make groups of people, and not not just groups for working or what are there is no negative reason behind that. I mean, they really try to split people in groups, or to split, or inside of the groups, they try to split people, and they try to make that they want people to make trouble. And some people really like that, but that are very bad people, really bad people, that are devils. They want really to destroy relationships just for fun, and that is a real narcissist. And here is also the problem with motivation. As I already said, a healthy monotony is a good option nowadays. Everyone, especially those ones who play more around with that stuff and doesn't really use it for useful stuff, but just for playing, or those ones actually need an extra portion of monotony. But nowadays, civilization grows and no places for monotony, no desert. Yeah, there are some deserts, but no people go there, and it's hot, and it's not so good for living there. But we also and still have beautiful forests, which are at some daytimes not so full, not overcrowded by people which want to go for a walk with their dog or so. If you can, I can recommend to go in the forest about lunch, around the lunchtime, because in the morning some people go there for jogging, for going with their dog, and so the evening even more people go there. But I think so in the middle of the day, there are most people are involved in normal jobs or normal places, go in the woods and enjoy monotony. And you will see, when you enjoy monotony enough, you really start to enjoy and to see the small things. You suddenly learn to enjoy watching a bird or a mouse. Or if you can find a bigger animal like a deer or whatever, wherever you come from, you see another animal which is not so often present like a bird. But even if you see a bird and you stop and you watch the bird and it's so beautiful, you learn to enjoy life more, because you learn what's in the here and now. You really come back to your senses instead of just being involved with the mind on the screen. Okay, but there is hope. I have talked about all that stuff from consciousness and from the ego, which is just a small part of the consciousness. But there is also the self, that in philosophy called the higher self often. And psychology, especially Carl Jung, says this self. But it's not to confuse with the ego. There are some psychologists, even they don't see that the consciousness has more. They just think we have the ego, and that's all, because they just consider Freud, and they take the self as a synonym for the ego. When you read psychologists, you must be very careful. Those ones are not so good, because they don't defer there's something bigger in us There is something we can develop. There is something which makes our lives better. We don't have just the ego, which is always striving. Actually, it wants a better life for us, but it makes more a catastrophe from it instead of making it better. So therefore, it's better to strive for the self, the true self, what you actually are. And I've talked about it in lots of detail. And it's so important. I couldn't say it again and again. It's so important to go in that direction. And this goes through meditation. But there is also a big problem in meditation related to motivation. This is because the ego don't want to consider that there is something like a soul, there is something like a consciousness, and even there is something like a higher consciousness, which is the self, which is the higher self. The ego just wants to forget it. And the point which is especially related to meditation is that it's not just the ego don't want it to see the soul, and especially not the self. The problem with meditation is that the ego says it's boring or it doesn't make sense. I have tried meditation several times, but I have never had luck. So meditation doesn't really make sense for me and doesn't bring effects for me. So no. And that's also from the ego, which tries to say meditation is useless and we don't need it. That's a thought from the ego. That's a judgment from the ego. Be careful with that. It wants to throw out your motivation for meditation. It wants to say, oh, it's boring. It's not motivating me. I don't meditate anymore. It's so boring. I just sit around and it's a waste of time. I must use my time for better things. I must do something. I have to do so much. It's so important. I have to make my 80 years so good. But I forget about the rest. That's the problem. Yeah. I hope you could learn here something. I will count it in 3 essential points again. And that's so easy. First of all, we have a soul. We have something like consciousness. We are not just a body. The second thing is one point of the soul, one aspect of the soul, of the consciousness is the ego. This is human consciousness, but this is just a very small part of a much bigger thing. And the bigger thing is the higher self. This is higher consciousness. And this is where we actually should strive for, and which is actually the true aim. And now I got an additional fact. Actually, they say in religions too, and in very old teachings, they say our higher self is actually our true self, which was even there before the ego developed. But suddenly the ego developed and split it. I don't know why, but maybe Paradise tries to explain it in Bible. Maybe I make another session about that. You were the self and then you fall down. The ego developed, fall out of this union and entangled in this world so much and thinks that life and this 80 years is so important and I have to do so much and forgot the being. And now we have to find back. It's not just that we have to find the self. Actually, you can say you have to find it back. You already had it. You already were in higher consciousness, but you are fallen out. This is what they wanted to say. We're falling out of paradise. But now we go back to paradise, and therefore see you in the next video. See you in paradise. See you in the union. We are all one. Bye.